go for an honest day's walk, for whatever distance, great or small, and not have a reward in the repossession of their soul. And actually that for me was even better than the two doctors, because it is the possession of your soul that for me is the absolutely fundamental reason for walking. In this cacophonous world, actually the repossession of one's soul is absolutely at heart. And so when the British Pilgrimage Trust was first set up, and I got in touch, it just, for me, was perfect, because actually it seemed to me that this was something that absolutely had to be done, to give people the opportunity to find and to repossess their souls through walking in beautiful places, to beautiful places, and actually, importantly, being part of that whole journey that pilgrimage represents. So unashamedly about people's heart and souls. Now, I'm also very fortunate, because one of the other things I do is I write a monthly column for Country Life. And this is not a sales pitch for Country Life, but actually once a month I have the great privilege of having a page to write about walking. And so I've been doing this for years now, and I tell you, it's brilliant, because I walk every day from my house, or when I was in Cambridge from my college, know a place so intimately, but actually every month you have to go somewhere new, because you cannot write about the same walk every month. Country Life made that perfectly clear. But actually I keep finding myself on pilgrimages, because actually I'm telling stories the whole time. And it's very often something captures at my heart, or my memory, or some experience, or some narrative, or some interesting place, and I find myself saying, I'm going to go walk there. And so I discover, I read all about it, I investigate, and I remember, and actually what happens is I go on a pilgrimage. I might not call it that, but that's what I'm doing. Sometimes I do call it a pilgrimage, so the Gloucester Cathedral Tewkesbury Abbey walk, which I did, I don't know, about a year ago, I think, was absolutely a pilgrimage, because I took with me one of my best friends who'd just lost his wife, was absolutely in floods of tears most of the way, but actually, we stopped at every church, we absolutely felt in repossession of our soul, and full of memories, full of poignancy. But actually, just the other day, I was up in Scotland. My father, who died 20-something years ago, loved Sandwood Bay. Does anyone know Sandwood Bay?
Yes.
Northwest Sutherland. It's about as remote as you can get. It's 4.5 miles from the nearest road. I absolutely felt, again, I was on a pilgrimage, remembering my father. I'd never been there before, but he loved that place. And I felt all around me, surrounded by this spirituality, and I really felt. So pilgrimage is what you want it to be, and can be how you make it. But actually I'm also, passionately, I'm a Hoskins child. Does anyone know what I mean by a Hoskins child? W.G. Hoskins, Making of the English Landscape. Published in 1955, extraordinary book, first ever to recognise the sort of human creation of the landscape, bringing together geography, geomorphology, but also farming, land use, politics, economics, the great rebuilding in the 17th century, the medieval Black Death, all of the things that affected the countryside. I read that when I was a student and just fell flat in love with it. It's completely dominated my life ever since. I can't go anywhere without looking for the Hoskins stories, what has shaped this place. And of course you can see it everywhere you look. So in one of my morning walks from home, I go past a tumuli, which is 10,000 years old, and you can see and you can feel and you can imagine the people who made that burial mound. And then you see something ghastly, sort of 1950s or 60s or something, and yet it tells a story. And it brings you this incredible sense of connection through the millennia. Now, Hoskins had another way of describing. He said the English countryside is the richest historical document we possess. You don't have to read about it, you can look, you can experience, and you can be informed and excited. And so it is, endlessly fascinating, full of stories, endlessly enriching. It's a palimpsest, it's layer upon layer upon layer. And our responsibility as humans, I've always felt, is not to wipe out the layers. And boy, have we done that in so many places, but not everywhere. And that's the reason for optimism. Because actually, if you think what he was writing about in the 1950s, he was horrified by modern agriculture. Wow, he should come back and see what we've experienced since. But he recognised these danger signals of building just anywhere, of building, and you know, house building that could be in Berkshire or could be in, you know, Cornwall or could be in, I mean, places, buildings that don't reflect the personality of their place, but also farming just wipes out that palimpsest, those layers. And that to me is the challenge of our generation, is to stop that thoughtless destruction and to rediscover the meaning of place and the understanding and the insight we get into really understanding it. And that's why ultimately the idea of beauty has been my guiding principle throughout my life. And when I came to write a book and when I left the National Trust and thought it was going to be about the National Trust, you know, endlessly fascinating, it turned out not to be about the National Trust at all. It turned out to be about beauty, because it was an idea I couldn't put down. Beauty isn't a thing, isn't even just aesthetics. Beauty is a way of looking at the world, a way of experiencing, a way of absorbing, a way of thinking about responsibility, about everybody's kind of involvement, and ultimately about sustainability. And so for me, the very, very best way to connect with all of that is on your 2 feet. It really is. And so for me, I'm always going to be a passionate advocate for walking. I believe that pilgrimage is just inseparable from walking, because wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you are effectively on a pilgrimage. And I love particularly the fact that BPT is not didactic about why you should go on a pilgrimage. I think it's really important. And my last little quote is back to G.M. Trevelyan, who said, at the end of his essay, his rather glorious essay, if I can find the right bit of paper, he said, and this is really important actually, he said, no, that's the wrong one as well. Really sorry. I should have organised my little files better. Is that the right one?
Do you want to pass me the ones?
Oh, it's not that one, and it's not that one, but he said, okay, so build up. It just reflects it's the BPT to me. He says, let no one be alarmed or angry because, and he uses the male, because his ideas of walking are different. There is no orthodoxy to walking. It is a land of many paths and byways where everyone goes his own way and is right. And I really like that idea that you discover your pilgrimage. The BPT is there to help, and in fact, the joy of discovery is, for me, the thing that binds us all together. But we all have our own reasons, but we all need to be walking and to be on pilgrimages. Thank you very much.